Welcome, everybody, to the new SSW podcast. It's called Hardwood. I am Snoozing Panda 12, also known as Francisco. I am here today with Gluecows,
What's up?
aka Tony. Say hello.
Hey.
And also McCoy, known as Kurt.
Hello.
We have a lot of things to talk about, so let's get to it. Okay, let's get things started by talking about high school. A team that really impressed me is the Rocky Hill Cyclones. They're 16-1 right now. They're number one in their state. They're number 34, and two of their main players are Easy Bake and Dream Shake, the power forward and center. Right now, Easy Bake leads the team in points, field goals, rebounds. So, what are some of the teams that impressed you guys? Let's start with Kurt.
The team I decided that was impressing me would be the Kirkwood Bengals in California. Uh, Obviously, since being in California, they play some pretty tough teams, so they have a reputable schedule to hold into account. To be honest with some of their players, they have 4 humans on their team. However, they're not really involved in the offense too much, as really only 2 players. That would be Grimmett and Jay. I'll pull up the first names, but they have about like 40 points, and but their leading scorer has about 60 at the center position. So it looks like a pretty balanced team. They all have, let's see, the Burt Blood and Ben Blood, I guess the Blood brothers, if you will. I think they've recently joined because they have pretty low stats. So maybe this team could be on the up and up. With Coach James Bolster, I think they'll be able to make a big impact in the big high school tournament coming up in, a couple weeks.
What are their current overall rankings?
Well, it looks like in state they're ranked 10th, but they're probably number 1 because they're the only team with only 1 loss in California. And according to the overall rankings, they're 84th. But I believe that's probably just a miscalculation by the system, and they're probably more so of a top 10, top 15 team, definitely.
Okay, how about you, Glue?
So I want to talk about the Truth or Consequences Peacocks. They're 16-1 out of New Mexico. They have a dynamic duo at point guard and shooting guard. At point guard, they have Steve Dash, who actually leads all human players in assists by a lot. Almost looks like 40 or 50 assists ahead of the second guy, who is actually the shooting guard on the team, Jason Dyer, who is third in points among all human players. And the reason I picked them is because they've been a pretty high-scoring team for high school. They just scored 72 points yesterday, and I know they run a fast-paced system, so it's really interesting to see how a run-and-gun team will play in the high school level. So the team I actually want to talk about are the Morrill Scorpions out of Nebraska. They're one of the 2 remaining undefeated teams. And if you go to their team page and just look at their past results, they've played very close games. Some may call them a little bit lucky, but they play great defense. A lot of teams don't even hit the 30-point mark against them. Actually, they haven't even let up a 30-point game. The most they've let up is 29. They have a lot of close one-point games. So it's you can easily see them losing again in the next few days. But for now, they're one of the last 2 teams remaining that are undefeated.
Yeah, I would expect that the citizens of Morrill are in a bit of a state of shock about this. I don't think that they really expected a team of no humans to do this well, but kind of like the team I was talking about earlier, they're pretty balanced, which I think gives them an advantage when it comes to the tournament coming up, because there's going to be a lot of games and a lot of good teams, and it'll be important to have quality in every position.
Yeah, it only takes one bad night too. These teams with a lot of stars on them, if one of their players just has an off game, they're in trouble.
Exactly. I'd say the star on their team would be Brantingham.
Yeah, he's put up the best stats.
Samuel Brantingham, center. Pretty good.
Tons of rebounds, a lot of assists for a center. 60 assists for a center. That's very solid.
Leading his team, yep. But no standout people, really. I mean, pretty balanced.
Yeah, not as star powered as the other undefeated team, which I know Fran knows a little bit about.
Actually, I do, and I think a lot of people would be happy about this, having 5 human players on the team. Of course, I'm talking about the Middletown Hustlers out of Rhode Island, #1 in state, number 40 overall. Haven't really had much trouble with teams. Did have a little scare against West Alice, only winning by 3, and a couple of games like that. But other than that, I think it's pretty solid team. And I say the 2 standouts on this team are Andre Carter, the shooting guard, and Radu Hu, the small forward. They're carrying the team in points. And Radu Hu's doing great on the boards, 101 in 17 games. So
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see where all 5 of these players end up at college. Maybe are they gonna stick together? Are they gonna split up? Are they all gonna be tier 1? I think they all have the talent to be in tier 1, but the tournament's gonna have a lot of influence on recruiting, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later. But Kurt, I know you know a little bit about this team too, right?
Yeah, actually, I was gonna comment on the other player, Hugo Capone. I think he's gonna be a key player when it comes down to the end of the stretch once we get in tournament time, because, you know, like Tony said, you can't rely on these guys day in and day out, because you can have a bad night and then you're out of the tournament. So I think it's going to really come down to basically who their backups are going to be, because as we know in the sim, it can be very there can be a lot of parity in sims. So it's important to have a good balance of players. Don't rely on, you know, Andre Carter and Radu, who, even though they are very good, you're going to need some other players to get to the tournament. I think you're not going to be able to, because if you go up against a team with a good, you know, 2 and 3 like the Middletown Hustlers have, then you can just easily, you know, focus on defending those 2 guys and then come out with an easy win. I think there's a team. I'll tease this right now. I think there's a team in college that also has this, this symptom as well. But we'll get to that when we cross that bridge.
About that.
no, so a side note on Hugo Capone. He was actually the catalyst behind the comeback that the Hustlers had. We were down like 6 points maybe in the second half against one of the teams, and he really stepped up and brought him a victory in overtime. So
yeah.
So yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot of games like that in the tournament, and I think it'll be entertaining, because I think that most people will be watching those games, because obviously the importance that they have on the season, and it'll be important because everyone's going to be watching. You know, national spotlight.
Especially with such a big tournament, upsets are gonna happen.
Yeah, they're bound to happen.
I believe it's 12 games for the whole tournament. I could be wrong, but something like that.
12 sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I know we talked about that as a weakness, that you can't really rely on Andre Carter or Radu Hu, but this team does have talent outside of them, obviously, because they're 17 and 0.
Yeah, like we said, Hugo Capone. Yeah, Hugo Capone, Lehan Billings, and Aristotle Serokulakis. I mean, they're doing their job too. They're helping the team further themselves and get better every game. So it's not just those 2 guys carrying the team.
Yeah, I did want to talk about Lehan Billings a little bit, because I know he joined late, and he's played 6 games, but he's already recorded 45 rebounds, which is...
Yeah, he's doing really good.
That's really high for high school. So he's been a huge addition to the team, I know.
I would have to bring into some conflict here, because I think this team really does rely on Andre Carter and Radu Hu. I think if you look at, I think if you look on, I mean, as you said before, these 2 players are carrying the Middletown Hustlers, and I think if they have a kind of game where they stumble around a little bit, I think they could get off to a bad start, and, you know, 1 turnover could lead into 3, and then a missed shot could turn into, you know, not making any the whole game, and I think that could really spell, you know, a catastrophe for the Hustlers in the end, because I think if you look at some of the close games that Middletown's been in, it's usually been a factor of a lack of production from Andre Carter or Radu Hu.
Yeah, but I think one thing we have to note about this team is they play within themselves, and they don't take terrible shots. They don't take as many threes as like maybe other teams would. They know how to play in their system. They have a good coach, and I think that's gonna bode well for them coming into the tournament. So
Yeah.
let's see how that works out.
I definitely agree with what Kurt was saying, where they definitely rely on Raduhu and Andre Carter a lot. But my only counterpoint would just be that this team does have a lot of talent outside of them, but they can't rely on just Carter and Hu to get things done. They also got to rely on their bench. The computers, they play a lot of time in the game. So the bench unit comes out and they have a bad game, that could be a loss for them, even if Carter and Hu play well. But I did want to transition and talk about the high school basketball tournament format, which we mentioned a little bit. So what do you guys think of the format? Do you like that it's every team makes it kind of like a 12-day tournament thing, or would you prefer a different setup?
I think I don't really like that every team makes it, because then it kind of makes the games almost not matter as much. Because let's say you go into the tournament and you just wreck, and but you only had like a 500 team, and then they end up winning. I think that just kind of detracts from the actual season of high school.
I would kind of pull up an argument here a little bit. Not necessarily what I think, but hear me out. I think that it is important that all teams get into the high school tournament, because I think it's important for all teams, for all talent to be involved in the tournament. Because for some instances, a player who's really good but was added in the, say, like 20th game of the season, and the team's has 3 wins. And granted, he did choose to join that team, but I think that team should still be able to make the tournament, because let's say that team only has 3 wins and 17 losses. They could get, 5 more wins the rest of the season, and that because of that player, basically. And I think that you should allow that team in the tournament, because they have the skills that are required. I don't think there should be a cutoff of cut off like half the league, like kind of you're saying. But so I kind of like the setup the way it is now, even though I just said that this wasn't my view. But I'm just kind of going with it. I think it'll be interesting.
I do think that the argument here is just the number of teams entering, not really. I think everybody agrees that there should be a tournament mode, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course.
So the argument mostly is just how many teams should make it. If you cut it in half, it really only eliminates 1 day. So, cutting it in half doesn't really do too much. And I do agree with Kurt's point that a lot of the reasons we have the high school tournament is to showcase the recruits to the college coaches. And
Absolutely.
that actually brings me to something I want to talk about that's been suggested. There's that 10-day layoff where coaches are going to be recruiting high school players, and high school players won't be able to do anything. And there's been some ideas floated around about some kind of maybe world championship kind of scenario, or I guess a real life comparison would be a McDonald's All-Star showcase kind of thing. What do you guys think of something like that being added for that little 10-day layoff?
I think that would be maybe difficult to achieve, because I think that's a great idea, first off, but I think it would be difficult to basically go about doing, because it's kind of all subjective who would be on the team and who wouldn't be on the team, unless you would make it open to all human players or something. I think maybe if you had some like solid threshold to get into one of the teams, then that would be cool. I think it's cool because you could do an East-West setup or something like that, or what would also be cool is if maybe you have a user vote in for who made it in, because I think that would get a lot more people interested in investigating high school in general.
Yeah, that's true.
But to add on to the tournament, what would you guys think about a setup that had the state tournament and whoever it would combine all the state tournament champions into one tournament.
I do like that idea, but then the only issue with that would be, I think a lot of coaches will try to coach the smaller leagues, instead of
Yeah.
coaching in somewhere like Texas. So,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you can give out extra berths into the tournament for big states.
It would also
like
take a lot
Texas or New
longer.
York. Yeah, and it would take a little bit longer, but the actual tournament time for the high school tournament would be reduced, so that could probably cover the extra few games added. Or you could just take out some games from the high school season. The high school season's
It's pretty
long
long
enough as
yeah.
it is, so. What do you think?
Yeah, how
Ken?
many games is it? So it's 31.
It's like 31,
pretty
yeah.
Well, in regards to like a tournament, Olympic tournament, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, kind of like a high school All-American kind of thing. Maybe just with
I think it'd be
human players.
interesting if like, it'd be interesting to like maybe have human players be captains of a team and then have them pick players they want out of like the pool, like the talent pool. I think that'd be interesting, and like that player would coach, maybe not coach, be part of a state. Like Andre Carter could be like the captain of Texas or something. Like that'd be interesting too, and then have them play a tournament.
Yeah, I like that. That's a cool idea. There's a lot of ideas floating around it. I'd love to hear what Rob has to think about it as well. But
We'll have to get him on.
we do need to get Rob on. When he's back from Olive Garden, we'll have him hop on.
I assume we're all talking about Rob Gardner, the coach of the Middletown Hustlers, right?
Oh yeah, of course. Great coach. And that actually brings me to my next point.
A lot of self-plugging for the
yeah.
Middletown Hustlers here.
Well, they have half of the
We're not
SSW
biased.
like people on there.
That's true. Half of the
Yeah, this
the whole
isn't a biased
SSW user base
podcast.
is on the team. So, being as unbiased as we are, I want to hear who you guys think is going to win the high school tournament.
Oh wow.
Who do you think, Kurt?
Um,
I'm putting you guys on the
It'll
spot.
be- yeah.
People
I
are
mean,
recording you, so.
there's, yeah. You're asking me to pick one out of what 4,000 teams or something like that. Like,
Yeah, but you're an expert, so.
that's true. This is a good point. I think it'll be tough to beat the Middletown Hustlers. Honestly, I think they're going to pull away with it, because I'll tell you why. Because I think the toughest team aside from them is probably the 16-1 teams we were talking about. I don't think the Merle Scorpions are going to be able to make it. I think they're gonna fall apart once it comes down to it. Because I think coming from Nebraska, they're not going to know what to do when they get to the the big national stage that the tournament's going to have. So I think the Hustlers are in the spotlight right now. I think it's kind of going to be like, I think they're going to get used to it, and they're gonna kind of adapt to the position that they're in, and they're gonna think of themselves as the number one team, and they're gonna carry that into the tournament, and they're not going to lose a game.
What do you think?
I think they're going to go undefeated throughout.
Well,
and
it's tough to
as
pick
unbiased
between.
as it possibly could.
Of course, we're very unbiased here. We're fair and balanced.
Yeah, I think it's between 4 teams right now. Obviously, that Scorpion team you were talking about, Truth or Consequences Peacocks, Rocky Hill, and the Middletown Hustlers. So one of those 4 teams is my pick. My unbiased opinion might be Rocky Hill, because, like we were talking about in that earlier segment, Andre Carter and Radu Hu seem to be carrying the Hustlers, and Rocky Hill kind of has their own duo, so that'd be interesting to see. But them being power forward and center kind of control the tempo, I guess, more.
Yeah.
So that'd be interesting to see, though, that matchup.
Yeah,
But
actually,
I'm Rocky Hill all the way.
that's actually what I was thinking too. I think Rocky Hill's gonna take it all, but we talked about them a little bit earlier, so I do want to talk about one team, the Portland Cardinals, which I know McCoy coaches, so I'm gonna try to be unbiased. But they have 3 human players who all put up pretty good stats. So I could see,
Yeah.
I could easily see them making a run, especially since they're a pretty good defensive team. I think they just got unlucky in their 2 losses. So, and honestly, all it takes is you just got to be high. If you're high in the tournament, anything can happen.
Smoke weed every day.
And speaking of weed, we have a very, very special guest on right now. We are here now with Paokfan15, aka Angelo.
AKA.
So, Angelo, let's talk about your college team, FSU.
All right.
Give everyone a background on FSU. Tell us what we want to know. Give the people what they want.
Well, down here in Tallahassee, we work really hard at practice. We try to keep the game scoring low. We pride ourselves in defense. We run a nice little motion offense here. But generally, I believe in defense wins championships, and it's still time will tell if that is true in some sports world. So far it's doing me well, but we won't be able to tell until a high octane offense plays an excellent defense, and then from there we'll be able to judge which wins.
Yeah, it's tough because we don't get to see Florida State play Kansas State. I'd like to see that matchup because Kansas State is such an offensive.
That'd be
juggernaut.
interesting.
So
Yep.
Kurt,
Do you want to introduce me?
no, let's go. We already introduced you at this point.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So, Angelo, what would you say that your attitude towards the SBA is? Do you plan on investing a lot of time into it, or how do you see it as?
To be honest, it's jury's still out. I don't see myself making that many players for it. Personally, I like coaching in simulation games. It's just my style. But I think eventually I'll possibly create a coach and go through that route. But I'm definitely anxious to see what happens, especially with the draft and which players become eligible, and all the background information leading up to the actual gameplay.
Interesting. So, a more general question for you then. In terms of basketball players, what is the favorite thing that you see in basketball players? What stands out to you?
Talking about Sim Sports World, right?
Yeah.
Okay. A big thing for me, which may be overlooked a lot, is I like players that could hit free throws. A lot of the times, I'm watching my game right now, and the opposing team is 4 for 13 for free throws. If you could hit your free throws in this game, that would be a big help. Because pretty much everything else will equal out: turnovers, steals. If someone shoots 20 times during the game, they'll make a good 7 or 8 shots. But for those teams that foul a lot, you need to put those teams away by making the free throws.
I agree with that. I think that the free throw percentage is a good indication of where their shooting stands at.
Yep. Yeah, so we just as a coach, you have to put more effort into the free throw cards, and those are pretty rare, right? I haven't seen that many out there. There's no free throw focus, right?
I don't think so. I don't think I've seen one.
There is. I think
I
there's
haven't seen one.
I think it's a
shooting,
skill.
Yeah, there's a shooting boost, which I think in turn helps with free throws, but I don't think there's one that directly.
Now I'm going to
influences
turn this
free throws.
around on you guys. Do you believe that there should be a free throw boost? Or, you can't really have a focus on that. You have a boost, though. Or do you think shooting is enough?
I think shooting kind of plays into that hand a little bit. Like, if you have a shooting boost, then your team will shoot better from the free throw line. I'm not sure, though.
I do like
That'd
the
be a
idea.
good question for Rob.
I do like the idea of adding more focus cards. So a free throw focus would probably be a good addition to the game, for sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
free throw's only a skill.
Yeah.
All right, I have a question for you, Angelo.
right.
What is your favorite mode in SSW?
Definitely got to be Dynasty mode, especially, being I don't have that many I'm not going to have that many college players. So being a coach of Florida State, that's something that it's fun for me. And even for the first couple of eras of since sports world, I was always big on college sports. In real life, I'm a huge college fan. I'm not a big NBA guy, not a big NFL guy. I'm more of a college sport guy. So being able to essentially replicate college sports on Sim Sports World, that's fun for me.
Okay, and we mentioned you being a coach for FSU.
Mhm.
Have you looked into the players coming up in the high school ranks? Do you have your eye on anybody?
Honestly, I have not looked yet. I actually looked yesterday at the human leaderboard, and there's a lot of good players, a lot of good forwards, whether it be small forward or power forward. Um, but there are a couple of people I have my eye on. I am going to be looking to get guards right away, because I'm pretty much fine with my center, and I have a backup power forward that's going to be staying. A good guard is hard to come by, especially with all the turnovers here. If you have a guard that has smart focus or smart pass attached to it, I think that that's someone that I'm going to be looking to get.
Right. And then, do you have any advice for newcomers?
Yeah, I would say to stick it out. At first you may lose a lot of games. It may not be fun, especially if you're not spending a lot of money, because it is tough to get good cards if you don't dish out a couple dollars here and there for some gold. But just stick it out. It's still in not beta mode, but Rob still has a lot of things to fix, and I guarantee you by come summer, it's going to be a perfect game, almost perfect. So I mean, just definitely stick it out, and there may be a lot of bugs here and there. Everything may not be perfect, especially if you're not winning. You may want to just quit and that's it. But especially with the plans Rob has, including different sports and making basketball even that much better. It'll be fun, especially it'll be a fun summer.
Right on.
Well,
I have another question
yeah,
for you.
Go for it.
Go ahead.
Kind of an add-on to my question about professional basketball and SSW.
Mm-hmm.
Do you plan on expanding yourself in high school? Do you feel like that could be an asset to you if you're starting as a high school coach and you can get some good players to come through your high school and maybe kind of filter into FSU, or maybe just have that on your resume? I mean, where do you stand with that? Do you want to be involved in high school at all, or?
I mean, you bring that. That's a great point. Being a good coach and possibly winning, state championships and national championships, and then your recruits see that you're a good coach. You put effort into it. Then it would be like a little feeder system for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't really thought much about that, but that makes excellent sense. Probably, I just want to get my recruits, my future Florida State recruits down, and you do have to pay close attention to it. So I want to give my priority to obviously the Florida State, but possibly next season or the season after that, I'll definitely look into coaching. I don't think I'll make that many other high school players, because eventually they're going to go against me, So definitely coaching is something I could look into.
Interesting.
Well, Angelo, I know you have to head out.
All right.
But before you head
Busy
out,
man, busy schedule.
yeah, he's a busy man. He's
I'm
recording his
up on
podcast while he's coaching his game. I don't know how he's doing it.
I tell you.
I have the Skype app on the phone on the sideline.
I don't hear the crowd. There's no crowd at the stadium.
No, we have a band because we used flares last game. So.
All right, Joe. But before we let you go, do you have any last-minute comments or any questions?
I just want to say, good job doing the podcast thing. A lot of people are gonna be able to watch it. And lately, the chat site on Sports World and the phone have been dead. So hopefully, this will this will help people be able to, connect more And it's fun when people are talking smack to each other on the board. So don't be shy, criticize us. We all make fun of McCoy. That's fine. He can handle it. But hopefully this will just bring out all the shy people on the chat.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully everyone will join me in making fun of Stabby.
Ooh,
As
you
he
suck,
doesn't.
Stabby.
He is pretty bad.
Coming after you. And Daniel, because he won that the big pack last
Oh,
time.
yeah, he did.
All right.
I think he still has a decision to make there.
Have a good
He
night.
does. All right. See you later, Angelo.
All right.
See you, Angelo. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, guys. So I want to transition now into the college mode, and I just want to hear your opinions on who you think is going to win each college conference.
Every conference?
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll just start off with the list that SSW provides for us. In the Pac Coast Conference, Pacific Coast Conference, I should say, I think Southern California is going to be the winner there. Pretty. There's a lot of competition in the conference, so it could be tough. But right now, I'd say they're the favorite for sure.
What do you think, Fran?
I think I have to agree. They're 8-0 right now. They have 2 sophomores, 2 juniors, and a senior. So they're not stacked with experience, but I think what they've shown so far is worthy of picking them as the winners of that conference.
Well, I'm actually gonna have to disagree with you guys. I have Oregon State. They lost their first game, but ever since losing it, they've won 7 in a row, and they've pretty much been killing teams. It's gonna be interesting to see how that pans out because, like Kurt said, it's very competitive, and once conference games gets rolling around, it's gonna be fun to watch. All right, so the next conference we have is the Desert Valley Conference, and I picked Nevada for this one. They're senior heavy. They have 5 seniors on the team. That's going to come in handy for sure since senior players are a lot more talented than their other CPU and human counterparts. What do you think is going to pan out for this conference, Kurt?
I think I like Nevada a lot too. I think they'll be a good team once the tournament comes around. But I gotta say that my choice is probably not going to be very popular. But I think Arizona is going to come away with this conference. I think they've been pretty inconsistent this season. But I think that once the conference tournament comes around, they got what's his name? Alexander Mamenga, their senior power forward, and he's their only senior on the team. So I think in kind of, I think in disagreement with what Francisco said earlier, I think this team has some youth to them. So I think they're going to be able to, they're going to be kind of new to the scene, and they're going to be kind of ready to experience everything. They're going to be looking forward to it more so, and I think they're going to come away with the conference, and I think it helps that they're kind of led by a senior on the team because maybe they can all learn after their best player. I mean, he's for the season so far, he's got 182 points, shooting almost 50%. That's really good for a player. 42 for 63 from the free throw, and
that is really good.
we all know that's a very indicative stat, I would say.
Who'd you have, Fran?
I had Utah State. I think kind of what Kurt said. They're a pretty young team. They have 1 senior on the team, but other than that, they have 1 freshman, 1 sophomore, 2 juniors, and I think they're going to be looking strong. They're 7-1 right now. They're ranked 2nd in that conference behind Nevada, so I think they might pull ahead and win this conference.
Yeah, so we're all
I
in
like this conference. Yeah, I think that's good. I think I like this conference because of that. It's kind of it'll be one that'll kind of be entertaining throughout, I think.
No, actually, I think my favorite.
There's
conference
no easy game.
is going to be the Central Plains Conference. There's also no easy game here, really.
Really?
I
You don't
wanna
think
talk
the
about-
1-7 Nebraska Knights is going to be an easy
No,
game?
the 1-7 Nebraska Knights.
I think
I'm
that's a
telling you,
tough
they're
one.
going to make a comeback. They'll finish
Yeah.
the season at 500.
Well, you know.
Not going to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah, I know.
They
Sorry,
only
I'm
lost
sorry,
74 to
Nebraska
41 to Idaho State.
Sorry, Nebraska fans, but at least you have an
Nothing.
undefeated high school team to look forward to.
Yep.
But for Central
So they're
Plains,
losing
I
next week.
have I actually have Texas Tech winning it all. Um, human
No
coach,
surprise.
human players, undefeated right now. It's hard to bet against them. Um, who do you have, Fran?
Obviously, I have Texas Tech. They're 8-0 right now. We have 3 seniors, 1 junior, 1 freshman, and their best player actually is the freshman, Bello. He's been putting up numbers. He's been putting up steals. Um, I think this team can go a long way, even though they're in a conference where all their top 4 teams are undefeated at 8-0, and then the next 2 teams are Kansas State and Kansas. And we all know about Kansas State. They were just running the table for a long time, and this conference is probably one of my favorite ones.
What do you think, Kurt? Who do you have winning?
Well, I'm gonna have to disagree with you guys. I think that this tournament's gonna be another good one
Yeah, I think
because
you're right.
there's so many good teams in this conference. I mean, there's just in the fact
And
that
Nebraska.
there's what 4 undefeated teams still. I mean, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
However, the team I have winning is the Colorado Bison, and I'm gonna say this because they have not had one game that's been close. They have not
That's
been
true.
contested in any single game. They started off the season beating Washington Tech by 21, beat Utah Tech twice in a row, winning in the 70s to the 30s. Beat Asheville 73-41. North Dakota State beat them 71-40, 85-56 against Wyoming Tech, and then just killed them the next game. Beat them by over 60, and then another 50-point win against Mass Tech. I mean, that is like, I would not have gone through all those numbers if that wasn't ridiculous.
Yeah, that really is ridiculous. All the teams have been really good in that conference, honestly.
And that's not to take
Except
away from
Nebraska.
Texas Tech. I do understand that Texas Tech is a very good team. I think that it's just going to take. I think it's going to be one game that Texas Tech has, and that they trip up and lose. I think Texas Tech will end up losing somewhere in the tournament, and then Colorado will take it
Yeah.
away.
And I'm honestly surprised no one picked Kansas State. I know they've lost, but I think every team's going to lose at some point during the season. So it's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back after their first loss, because they've been just dominating teams. But
Yeah,
what's-
Julie Renzoni is probably on to be for one of the players of the year, and that was kind of what I was teasing at earlier,
Yeah.
which it happened to stumble upon them losing in the middle of our podcast tonight. But yeah, Julie Renzoni, he has just been completely focused on that team. He is just killing it, absolutely destroying everyone, and I think that's honestly, I think that's why they lost today. I mean, he only made 10 shots and they lost, so I don't think anyone's raising the eyebrows to that. I think that's
Yeah.
I think everyone kind of understood that was going to happen. Once he gets taken out, they're going to likely lose.
I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later when we talk about the SBA and the SBA draft, but Julie has just been the best player in college by I don't even think it's close. So it's going to be interesting to see if she ends up going #1 in the draft. But like I said, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's move on to the Gulf Coast Conference.
Yeah, he averaging like 50 points a game or something.
Yeah, it's
That's just crazy.
nuts. She came down a little bit to earth today. I think she what was it, like 20, 25, 29, somewhere.
26,
between there.
26. Which 26 points on 27 shots. That's not
Yeah, I mean,
awful.
that's not bad.
But 10 for 27. That's probably why they lost.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest question here is Julie a guy or a girl?
Yeah, we don't know, or both. Is she gender fluid?
Yes.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
is a
yes,
big
she's gender fluid.
Fran knows.
Well,
No, I
guess
said
he
yes.
would
That
know.
is the big
He probably
question.
yes,
goes
it's
to
a
the
big
games
question.
with the scouting reports and whatnot.
yeah, Fran knows. Fran's not gonna tell us who he or she is, but
Well, we already know who they are.
we don't know if he or she is a man or a woman.
Ah,
So
true.
that's the big question. But we'll talk about that a little bit later when we do. That's the #1 topic when we talk about the SBA and the SBA draft.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty important because is it going to be the most valuable man or the most valuable woman?
Or both.
Or both. Most valuable both.
All right, well, for anyone still listening, we're gonna move on to the Gulf Coast Conference. My prediction for this is Florida State, and I honestly don't think this conference is as competitive as the other Tier 1 conferences. I think Florida State's the best team in this conference by far.
Yeah, I think this is
But
one of
I'm
my-
interested to hear what you guys think too. What do you
Oh,
think?
I'm gonna have to disagree with that. I think Georgia is pretty good.
You do?
They're 8-0 as well. They have 2 seniors, 2 juniors, and a sophomore. I think they're built to. If it comes down to Florida State and Georgia, I think Georgia might take it. I think they have what it takes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't necessarily think they're. I shouldn't say they're bad. I mean, obviously they're good. They're 8-0. I just think compared to the other conferences, there's definitely a bigger gap between 1 and 2 in the Gulf Coast. What do you think, Kurt?
Well, originally I was picking Florida State in this one, but I've kind of been changed by what Francisco said. I think Georgia does look pretty good. The only thing about them I'm afraid of is that they have 2 players that they basically seem to rely on. One of them, Deborah Tyrer, and then the other one being Kevin Rossell. But other than that, they really don't have any players that make an impact. I mean, it's gonna be something that they really want to look forward to down the stretch. Is someone else other than those 2 to contribute, because if they don't, then they're going to be in a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, I disagree with you guys. I think Florida State's gonna pull away, but I guess we'll see. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think Florida State's definitely the favorite, but
Oh yeah, yeah.
and to add on to that too, I don't think this conference is very good this year.
That's fine. I mean, not every conference can be the Central Plains Conference, but so the next conference we have the Midwest Conference. For this one, I have Kentucky winning it. I think they're one of the better computer teams, computer coach teams on SSW, and one of the better ones in Tier 1. And this conference overall has been pretty weak too. I mean, Kentucky and LSU are the only 2 teams at the moment that have been pretty consistent. I remember Tennessee was pretty much they were the first team to get upset on day 1, and they've been a disappointment ever since. But I'd like to see who you guys think's gonna win.
I would say that this is going to be Kentucky's conference. I don't think there's really, I said the Gulf Conference wasn't very strong, but I would say that this one's probably the least strong out of all the conferences.
Yeah.
Up there. Kentucky is very good. I have to concede that, but I don't think they've really played many good teams, so I don't know how much that's really gonna come into factor once they start playing other teams. I know they're playing Louisville in their the game after their next one, so that'll be a good one to look out for. But other than that, I mean, yeah, Kentucky. I mean, they're the only one that's undefeated, and honestly, LSU is the only one with 1 loss, and LSU just doesn't really look that very convincing, anyways. I mean, LSU lost to Arkansas State. They only won by 4 points to Maryland State. They have some pretty solid wins, but nothing really convincing. I mean, this one's tough to read just because there's not really any strong suits anywhere.
I picked Kentucky as well. They're 8-0 right now. Their starting 5 is made up of 4 seniors and a junior, and it's just I didn't even know about this team actually.
Yeah, they got 2 seniors on the bench too.
Yeah, and there's both of their centers account for half of the total points, so they're really good, I guess. I haven't really kept up with them.
Yeah, that conference as a whole has kind of been under the radar, except for Tennessee, like I mentioned, just because they got upset on day 1. They've sort of been a disappointment. But enough about this crappy conference. Let's move on to the Great Lakes Conference. This one's kind of tough. I think a lot of these teams are actually better than what their record says, but
I agree.
I had to go with Wisconsin with this one. It's hard to bet against a CPU coach, and I think Daniel's a good coach.
Human coach.
You
And
mean
he
a human
has-
coach?
Yeah, sorry, human coach, and he has. I know Stabby has a player on his team, and I think that's gonna be big as
I think that's
Stabby's
Daniel,
player
though.
develops. Yeah, no, Stabby has a player on the team, but it's Daniel's coach.
Oh, okay.
Coaching. It's just hard to bet against human coaches. What did you guys pick? Did you guys bet against the human coach? Even though I just said it's hard to do that.
I think I have an underdog. I think I have Ohio winning this one. I think Ohio's done really well this season. Because when you ask me, who's going to win the conference, I just look
The
for
Sycamores.
point differentials. Yeah, the Ohio Sycamores, they have done really good this season so far. They've not really been in a close game yet. They've although they have lost. I will say that they've lost, but they only lost by 2.
Yeah.
So one hiccup game, I know that can spell disaster sometimes, but I think they can learn from that. I think that they can kind of turn that into a good run going to the end of the season. I think this conference is kind of, for the most part, up in the air to any team. There's a lot of quality around here. But, and then, of course, I look at their stats on their team, and they have some very good players on their team. I mean, they have Deloff. They have Emily Deloff, 84 for 156 shooting. I mean, that's above 50%.
That's really good.
Yeah, Amy Colasadro, near 50% shooting, and those are the players they rely on. So, I mean, they have consistent players that they're relying on. I think that that's going to be a strong suit of theirs going into the tournament. I think that's going to be hard to beat them.
What do you think, Fran?
I think I have a pick that might surprise some, maybe not. I picked Indiana. Right now, their starters is consisted of 3 juniors and 2 seniors, with 2 seniors coming off the bench as well. And 3 of their starters have scored over 100 points so far, and that's more than half of their total team points. They seem to be a little bit of a low-scoring team, and but I don't think that's not really a big deal. They're 6-2 right now. But I think they could pull ahead. I think they have a really good team.
Yeah, it's tough to see right now whether or not our balance teams as good as teams that maybe rely on 3 really good players.
Yeah, I think that's really what we're seeing a lot of. Is it's very
We're
There's
seeing
a-
both
there's
styles
there's a
winning.
there's a clear line between teams that are, like you said, balanced and relying on all players, and teams that are relying on a handful of players.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teams that have players that have 50 points, like several players, like 7 to 8 players with 50 or more points, and there's also a lot of teams. I mean, that have 2 or 3 players with 100, 200 points.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be. I think it's important to look at games between 2 teams like that, because then you kind of see which the sim seems to maybe favor more.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how it plays out over the course of this season, especially maybe with some teams that are maybe just relying on humans rather than computers too. Maybe that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So the next conference that we have, the second last one, is the Atlantic Coast Conference. This one was tough for me too, but I went with UNC, and obviously I'm not biased. Obviously I don't hate Stabby that much.
I do.
Well, we all kind of
Just
do.
kidding,
Okay,
Stabby.
we all hate Stabby. I know, whatever. He's an awful person, and
Oh, now
I
you
don't
guys make
that-
me want to say
I don't
Durham's
like that
going to
he's
win it.
6-1. But I picked UNC just because they have 3 human players. Even though they're freshmen, I think that's going to play a huge part, especially as the season progresses and their players progress through the XP boost. Who do you have, Kurt?
Well, I wanted to say UNC to start, but I'm going to go ahead and switch to Durham because
Oh no!
I'm gonna bring some conflict
Not
into
Stabby.
this. They've not lost since the first game of the year, and
Yeah,
that's probably one of the main points to take away from their team right now. They've kind of been pretty good through the season. I mean, they've had a decent amount of, strong wins. More than just a few points. However, they did just kind of eke through today by 6 points. Yeah, I mean they're pretty balanced as well, statistically speaking. They have their center shooting over about 50%. Their starting power forward shoots over 50%, and that's you got to look for the consistent quality, and I think that's kind of an indication of that. They have a lot of players that are near or above 50%, and that's from the field. I mean, and I think that might be something to look for. I mean, if if UNC has a bad game and Duke has their average game shooting around 50%, then it could easily be a Duke win.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do agree with that. Who do you have, Fran?
I picked UNC as well. I have a vested interest in this team, but I think they're going to do well because they have a freshman as their starting shooting guard, and they have a senior coming off the bench, and I think that helps a lot because there might not be a drop off, and actually it might add to the offense. I'm not sure, but they also have 2 human players coming off the bench, so I think that puts them ahead of like the teams that are in the conference because they have that manpower coming off the bench, and their starting 5 is decent too. So
yeah, that's actually something we really haven't talked about too much is bench production, because the bench players do play a lot of time. I believe it's I think they play 16 minutes, right? Am I right with that?
Yeah, I think it's 8 minutes a half.
Yeah, I mean 16 out of 40 minutes. That's close to half. So
yeah,
the bench really does play a big part, even though we really haven't talked about it too much.
Well, we've discussed the balance versus.
Yeah, we have discussed the balance. That's true. But all right, let's move on to our last conference, the Northeast Conference, and I have UConn coming out of this conference, currently 8-0. They're another one of these balanced teams that we've talked about with a lot of players scoring 50 points or more on the season. One of their players, their power forward, Samantha Bideau, scored 163 points this season on 80 for 114 shooting, that's an extremely high number. That's way over 50%. It's nuts to see, and that's only on 8 free throws, or 6 free throws made, 8 free throw attempts.
Yeah.
So she's just been killing it.
Clinical.
But who do you guys have?
I went with Connecticut as well.
Yeah, I gotta rep Connecticut. There's a lot of Connecticut residents on the site, it seems like.
Yeah, I also picked them because they have 3 seniors in their starting 5 and 2 coming off the bench. Mm-hmm. And like you said, their power forward, or who was it? Yeah, their power forward.
Samantha Bideau
scored a ton of points and has been very productive. And I see them winning this conference, even though there's a lot of good teams on here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to go with Syracuse on this one. I think they're a very good team. I think Connecticut's also a good team, but when I look at Syracuse's win margins, it's hard to really separate. It's hard to not separate them from the rest of the crowd. I mean, they don't have a player quite like Samantha Bideau, but I think that's going to be hard to come by no matter what. But what I do like about their team is that they do have someone that they focus on, but they also have a fair amount of balance between the rest of their players. I mean, they have 4 or 5 players with more than 50 points. That's pretty noteworthy. But the main point I would like to make about them is that they have very good win margins against other teams this year, and could change once conference comes around. But I don't see that happening in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that too.
I think they're both very good teams. It's hard to.
Yeah, it's still really early on. It's hard to tell because I mean, a lot of these teams have played only like lower tier teams. So
yeah,
we'll see once they play more competitive teams.
Basically, the next games are going to be those too. I don't know if you guys have looked at the schedules, but I think there was I don't know. I think Rob kind of had like a formula because I think the first 9 games are against like lower tier teams.
Yeah.
At least for tier 1 teams, like against tier 3 or something like that. But if you look at this, most schedules, like I have Syracuse schedule up right now, and they play Iowa State, Cincinnati, Akron, all next.
Yeah,
And
that's
then,
what's gonna get interesting.
and
And
I know
Texas
my
Tech,
team
too.
plays. Yeah, they play Texas Tech too. I know my team plays 2 undefeated teams. I think it's Kentucky's one of them, maybe Colorado.
And good luck with that.
At least you don't have to
Yeah,
play
that'll be
Kansas State
difficult.
twice, like Fran does. But so
I will win.
we've got through all these conferences. We had some disagreements, but
Still friends.
sort of a well,
Ish.
we all come together. We bond over our dislike for Stabby. So it's
The one thing that brings us all together.
yeah, the only thing. But all right, so let's transition a little bit into the top 25 that I had made, and I just want to see if you guys have any comments on the list that I have right now.
Go
Anything-
Texas Tech. That's all I have to
I
say.
I can I disagree. No, I'm just
Ah.
kidding, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting the way you have them listed because I don't think I would be as cookie cutter as you are about it.
That's my feelings.
Because you kind of have it go like humans with no losses, humans with 1 loss, humans with 2 losses at the end. I think Wisconsin and Louisville are probably better than some of the teams ahead of them. That's not to say that I could decide which ones they are better than, but I kind of think that when it comes down to it, Wisconsin and Louisville are probably going to end up being, and they come in at 24th and 25th. I think they're going to end up being, likely making it to the Sweet 16, Elite
Yeah.
8, maybe even further for one of them. But I like your top 4. Panda's team is looking really good right now. It'll be interesting to see what, if anything, does stop them. Florida State's also looking really good. I know Angelo was commenting on his game that he had earlier today. It was pretty difficult, but so maybe once he gets out of he starts playing the better teams, he'll be able to maybe confirm whether or not he's worthy of that second spot, or
Yeah.
whether he's maybe worthy of the number 1 spot. But I think North Carolina might be better than Duke. I think that'll be definitely a good game, but I think I like North Carolina better than Duke, even though I said that Duke was going to, or I should say Durham. Durham was going to win the ACC championship, but I think as it stands right now, I think North Carolina's had better outcomes
Yeah.
than Durham has. I keep messing up with that Duke Durham thing, but I don't think it matters.
That's with the DU. It's so close. But
I think
yeah.
the most surprising thing is North Arizona being on there as a tier 3 team. They're 8-0. They're number 11. I think that's the most surprising thing to me.
Yeah, and I mean the lower tiers, I think, deservedly so, don't deserve as much love. But I actually have Central Florida at number 5. All their games that they've played just haven't been close, and I felt like that in combination with rank points is what made me decide to put them at 5 and have North Arizona at number 11. I had North Arizona initially in that first top 25 that I made, and I mean they keep winning, so they're gonna have to keep staying on this list.
Well, you brought up rank points. How do you feel about the rank points? Because I seem to be a little confused about how it works.
Yeah, it's definitely a complex formula used, and there are some issues with it, which I sort of discuss in the initial top 25 that I made. There was that bug where I think it was the 3rd game of the season. Some teams played in a sense that in essence, they play
20-minute quarters.
Yeah, 4 20-minute quarters, which obviously has an effect on rank points. So
Right.
I sort of don't use rank points to factor in the teams that played those kind of games.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does it seem crazy? I was just thinking of it, but does it seem crazy to suggest that maybe if something does like happen like that, that you just like ride it out until the end of the days of games? You know, so it's still even, you know, across the board. Does that sound crazy?
I don't think it
No,
sounds crazy,
no.
but I think it might break the sim. Like like one day they like if teams just go crazy and score and like it just throws everything for a loop, you know. But I do see what you're saying, and it kind of wasn't fair for the later teams to kind of play shorter quarters, but it wasn't fair for like the earlier teams to play longer quarters. I don't know. I just don't. I think it's just easier to resolve everything when you can or when
Yeah.
Rob can. So I didn't have a problem with it.
All right, well, guys, transitioning from the top 25, who do you guys have as the 2 teams that's going to make it to the end and play each other in the CSBA championship game?
Go ahead, Francis.
I'm not Francis. I think I think the 2 teams are gonna be the 2 teams that are my pick are Texas Tech and Kentucky. I think those 2 teams are gonna go far. I think they're gonna make it to the finals. I think Texas Tech is gonna win.
Mm-hmm.
But I really do like Kansas, and they have I mean not Kansas, Kentucky. They have like we said, 4 seniors and 1 junior. So I just think that adds a lot to the team.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's tough for me. It's tough to pick. I have, if I had to pick today, I would go with Texas Tech and Kansas State. And I know it's almost taboo to pick a computer team to win it all, but Kansas State's just been so good. I know they lost today, but Julie's just so good. He or she is so good, and I don't know. I just don't see how a team's gonna stop her or him. What do you? What do you have, Kirk?
This is a tough question. I mean, I think
It is still early.
I think it'll be. I hate to sound cliche, but I think it'll be Texas Tech versus Florida State.
Mhm.
I think those 2 teams have probably 2 of the best human players in college right now, and I think that'll play a big role when it comes down to the end because I don't think they'll have any competition when it comes to CPU teams. I think the only really teams are going to have to worry about each are other human teams themselves.
Yeah.
Because we have to keep in mind that the college players are going to progress a lot more than what they're at right now. At the end of the season, they're going to be a lot better than what they are right now, and the CPU players will not have progressed at all.
Yeah.
And
that's definitely true. Like,
I mean,
realistically, a lot of these players are probably going to go up. What would be a good number? Probably like 6 or 7 new attribute points added by the end of the season. Probably more than that. But the real human players are going to definitely gain in talent.
Well, let's talk about the CPUs, actually. Kurt brought up a good point. Do you guys have a problem with them not progressing throughout the season?
I don't. 'Cause from what I understand, they're going to progress after the season. Like, as
So they
go
do
from
progress
sophomore
at one point?
Yeah. At one point they will.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's
I
fine.
think that's good. That's a good that's a good system for it to be in.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
I was under the impression that they didn't upgrade. So.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if what Tony is saying is accurate, then yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to go about it because the humans should still have some sort of advantage over the CPUs, you know.
Yeah, we have to talk to Rob and see what he.
I can't wait to do one with him on. We'll have to invite him.
Oh man, we're gonna hurt someone's feelings when he's on. I don't know whose, but probably Stabby. All right.
Probably Tony's.
Enough about the CSBA. I want to talk a little bit about the pro league that's coming, the SBA.
I want to go on that a little more though. I think I heard you. I heard you get your feelings hurt easily, Tony.
My feelings are hurt right now, and nobody's even done anything to hurt my feelings.
So is that confirmation?
Enough about my feelings. Let's talk about the new pro league, the SBA. We don't really know too much about how it's gonna work. We know it's gonna be 2 games simmed a day, which I think will come out to about 60-something games and then playoffs, with a draft at the end of the season. Do you guys have any ideas or suggestions on how it should work?
Well, first I want to see how it's gonna play out. Like, are there gonna be 2 conferences like in real life? Are there gonna be divisions? How are like teams gonna be separated? You know, I think that'd be like where to start. But yeah, we really don't know much. Like, we don't even know the team names. We don't know like what city they're gonna be in.
Yeah,
but
I mean it's a lot of speculation at this point.
All right, one of the things I think about SBA that will be interesting is how they do the draft, how Rob sets up the draft. There's a couple, maybe dozen ways that you could go about doing this, but one that I would kind of suggest would be rating all the players sort of based off of each other, because I think that'll make it very fair to everyone else, because there's going to be some worse players, there's going to be better players, but you shouldn't be able to know, the player's actual skills. You shouldn't be able to know, like, actually how good he is, but maybe more of, like, a list of the best players, because then you could kind of force, tough decisions with, like, oh, I have a shooting guard already, but the best player left is a shooting guard by a lot, and I need a center, and the next best center is, the 25th best player on the list. It'll make some difficult decisions without necessarily knowing all the information. A player could be, split by 20 other players. 2 players could be split by 20 other players, and their skills could only be different by a few points, and you wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah, I do like that idea, because you don't want to like give out too much info about the players, because I mean we will have stats. Stats are going to be important in decision making, just like it is in real life. So you obviously don't want to give out every player's attributes and stuff. There has to be some kind of guessing game.
I think
going
like
on.
a vague letter grade for that, like for players, would be like helpful.
Yeah, like similar.
That doesn't give
NBA
that doesn't give out a stat. That doesn't give out skills. It kind of just gives you kind of a way to tell where they're at, and then compare that to other players, and then like Kurt said, you could decide what players you want to take and where you want to take them, if that's like a part of the draft, how that works.
Yeah, I'm gonna be interested in seeing what Rob comes up with, because there's a lot of ideas. So let's talk about what Rob just posted on the forums. I think 2 days ago, he mentioned that coaches are going to be free to make for the pro league, and I just want to talk about that. How much I like this idea, because
it is interesting.
There's only 30 teams in the league, from what I understand, maybe 32. So those will, before the end of the season, that's going to fill up, and it's going to be a full human versus human league.
Well, ideally.
Yeah, ideally it's going to be a human versus human league, and I know Rob's going to track the inactivity on there too, in case any coaches join and just become inactive. Because obviously it's crucial to have a very active league. I think it's going to end up being possibly the best league. I know everyone loves college, but competition-wise, that might end up being the best, especially when draft season comes along.
Yeah, and don't forget the players are also free. Their creation, at least.
Yeah, I know it's use cards for that. That's gonna be really interesting. I don't know what everyone plans to do making player-wise, but I know I'm gonna make a player or two for sure.
I think it'll make it one of the more interesting parts of the game now. I mean, I think since everyone's going to be involved, it's going to be something that we can all kind of gather around and test things in. I think it's an idea that Rob kind of understood that he should probably make, because we don't have the quantity of users to really step into the positions, using their gold or money or whatever. Once we get some more people, it will be, deserved, earned.
Yeah.
But I think it'll make it interesting right now, because there's around anywhere from like a handful to maybe even a dozen active users, and I think it'll make SBA basically the breeding grounds almost for player like development of the user.
Yeah. And one thing I would like to see is maybe not in the first season, because there's not enough of a user base at first, but I'd like to see tough contracts for the coaches. If you look at the NBA in real life, there's usually like every season there's like 10 or 15 coaches fired, and if we're going to keep SBA free, there needs to be high expectations for when you coach there. So if you have a season or two where you just do absolutely awful, maybe not one season, but like 2 seasons in a row you do bad, then you should lose your job, and it should be given to some other up-and-comer who thinks he can turn the team around.
Yeah, I'm a new user for SSW, and I know you guys were here back in the old versions, and I was just wondering, is there an All-Star weekend during SBA?
There was not.
I don't think there was one, but I know Rob's talked about putting it in. I don't think it'd be able to run mid-season, but I think after the season, because there's gonna be like a 10-day break as well for Pro League, I believe. So during that little break, we can maybe convince Rob to have an All-Star game.
Okay, well, I think that wraps it up this week. If you have any suggestions, post it in the chat. We will look at it and try to accommodate. I just want to say thank you to Pauk for coming on.
Thanks, Pauk.
I also want to thank my co-hosts, Tony and Kurt, and we'll see you next week.